We're getting the lift kit installed today. Having my Tesla Model Y for over a year, I got to spend some time in it during the winter, going through snow and some very moderate overlanding. And I saw the value of how well this car performs with its really awesome traction control. But I noticed the major limiting factor is its ground clearance. And I have the performance model, which actually sits about an inch lower than the long range version. So I could really use some lift, and that's what got me to TSportline's 1.8-inch Overland kit. And this is a lift kit. It sits on top of your suspension. Because the nature of how this sits in your car, it basically just lifts the body of the car up and it doesn't impede with the current suspension. Shout out to the Driveway. I found them through a reference. They're one of the very few companies out there who are willing to work on Teslas, and we found these guys in San Jose, and they were able to get me scheduled to have my Tesla lifted. And so thank you guys for doing that.
These you'll get like a squeaking.
Oh shit.
Or and like sometimes a click, but most of the time it's either this or the wheel bearing.
There she is. So nothing else needs to be modified in order to add this, and this will give an extra almost 2 inches of lift, which really makes this car kind of look more like an SUV or compact SUV type, rather than having basically sedan ground clearance. Wow, I definitely feel like I'm higher up. More comments on how it rides. Calibration and process. So once you do a lift, you need to align the car, and you also need to calibrate the camera. So when this was in park, I pressed on the camera calibration, pressed the clear, and it reset basically its memory. All right, so I just finished the drive, and I'm sure you guys are wondering what this does to range. Let's talk about it. It actually pretty much did not do anything. And let's go over a couple things, because theoretically it should affect the range, because physically having this car a little bit higher up is going to increase the wind resistance due to that kind of undertow, the wind getting underneath the car and giving that extra drag. We're also talking about really fine measurements here. 2 inches of lift is really only increasing the car about maybe 20% above its current riding height, or the riding height that it was. And so these small differences, there's going to be so many more things involved in the road. The temperature, the wind, the elevation, the way I'm driving. So it's hard to really tell what happened here. Another thing, I drove this car 52,000 miles, and in that time, and within that mileage, the car has slightly changed in terms of alignment. And so I essentially went in for kind of a tune-up, and they aligned it because they had to. When you get a 2-inch lift, they had the measurements of the car, and you can see that the car, before it was actually lifted, was off from OEM specification. And so they reverted that back to what the car was supposed to be at. And so this car essentially is now riding at its perfect setup. And so that actually does help my range. And so the difference of having that 2-inch lift may be so small that in compensation for getting alignment, it's actually neutral or even better. So that's just kind of like a thing of thought here. Maybe I'll be able to tell later, but as of now, that was a really good drive. I was going slow, but I did better than I did this morning. And for some of you who went into the forums and you read about people getting a lift, they always talk about how they get a range reduction. Well, all of those people are saying they got a range reduction because not only did they get a lift, but they got new tires. And for those of you who know kind of physics and have that kind of engineering mindset, changing your tire size is going to drastically affect how much efficiency you get, especially when you start changing wheel size. And so this was a direct comparison because the original tires are still on there, and I really just got a lift. And so I don't really think it's affecting range, hardly any. Second, you might be wondering what the drive quality is like, and it's exactly the same, because what we're doing here is we're putting a block on top of the suspension, which is just sitting in between the suspension point and the body of the car. We're not actually compressing any of the suspension points. It's literally exactly where it is before, just sitting on a block now, instead of just sitting on the frame of the car. And so nothing has changed in terms of modification to the suspension. The suspension is simply attached to blocks, which are attached to the body. So the ride quality has not changed here at all. I'm simply riding higher. I think the only difference I'm going to feel is performance on cornering abilities. And I kind of already sacrificed the superior cornering qualities of this car when I changed wheels from those performance low-profile tires to these tires. I kind of lost that edge of taking corners extremely fast. And obviously this lift does not help in that aspect. So it's been a month now since I got the car lifted, and just want to give you an update. I'm sure you're curious about the range impact with having that car sit almost 2 inches higher. And I unfortunately don't have a solid answer for you because of the nature of how EVs are so susceptible to any little difference. We're talking wind, speed, elevation, temperature. Those have huge impacts on your range, and we are approaching winter here. It's now December, and every single year the car gets about 20% less efficiency due to the cold weather, and it's just kind of the nature of how it is. So this test became really difficult to kind of gauge how much that lift has affected the range performance on that car. Now, I want to be conservative here and tell you that it does have a little bit. I don't want to say it doesn't have any range impact, just because I know how the physics work. When you have a car lift up higher, it's going to have more air drag. Now, I won't say it's 10%. I'd say it's probably closer to around 5% of a range impact. And this is a direct comparison for having the same tires, the same rims. Just slap those things back on. So we're just factoring in the lift here, and I want to say it's around 5%. Even driving speed, for instance, you cut back probably 2 miles per hour, and that will probably save that energy that was lost from the lift being higher off the ground. And so that's kind of my answer for you, is that it's kind of negligible, but technically it's probably hitting the range about 5%, so maybe a 5% range loss. And talk about how climate and wind resistance hits the range of a Tesla. I was towing a 3,500 pound trailer with the Model Y. Yeah, you heard that right. I towed a 3,500 pound trailer with my Model Y, and I did it all the way from Idaho, Boise, Idaho, all the way back to California. And it's a pretty wild story. The video is not out yet, but give me a like and subscribe, and you guys will see that coming out next. And it's very entertaining, and yes, I tow the Model Y at its maximum capacity, and the findings are interesting. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you found it informational. Hit the like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time for another informational adventure type video. Towing a trailer.